back to Yulan's channel. In this video, we'll be continuing our journey of AP Psychology or psychology in general if you're interested. And if you haven't watched my previous videos on AP Psychology Unit 1, the scientific foundation for psychology, and previous subunits of Unit 2, biological basis of behavior, please do so. So yeah, let's begin. Oh, by the way, today we'll be focusing on the adaptable brain neurofluidity, and we'll be talking about concepts such as neurogenesis, neuroplasticity, mere exposure effect, priming effect, and how does the drug affect us. So yeah. So the key here are the two key vocab of this subunit, plasticity and neurogenesis. Our unique trait of our brain involves the idea of plasticity. Plasticity is our brain's ability to reorganize itself after an accident or tragedy, or modify itself in response to experience a change. Since the brain is constantly forming new pathways, it can sometimes overcome a stroke or damage and regain skills that had been previously lost through this organization. Our brain's ability to change like this helps account for why the blind have always good hearing senses and the deaf have amazing visual perception. As you can see, like one of their five senses get damaged, and the other sense will play a bigger role in helping and like taking over the roles of the sense that got damaged. Our minds are much smarter than you think. If you experience major brain damage, our brain cannot regenerate neurons. Every part of the brain has its own function. So what happens if an essential part of our brain is damaged? Well, other parts of the brain actually help and take over the tasks of the damaged neurons. Your brain can easily adapt towards any change. Another way that our brain adapts is through the process of neurogenesis. It's the growth and formation of new neurons, which can grow and form new connections. Neurogenesis, in essence, can heal the brain. Now we have consciousness. I'm sure a lot of you have heard the concept of consciousness from like news articles or like the concept of Sigmund Freud. So basically, consciousness is our awareness of ourselves and the environment. There are three states of consciousness: spontaneously, physiologically, and psychologically. And the levels of consciousness will also be discussed in the next slide. So spontaneously is like daydreaming, drowsiness, and dreaming. Physiologically, on the other hand, are like hallucinations, orgasm, food, or oxygen deprivation. And finally, psychologically, consciousness, states of consciousness is like sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and meditation. Although you are limited to what you see and are aware of, other events can influence your consciousness. The mere exposure effect, which comes up in the multiple choice question every time on the exam. So please remember this key concept, and it describes our preference in all stimuli that we've seen before our new stimuli. For instance, a group of participants were shown two lists of terms separated by time. However, even if they couldn't remember the words from the first list, they still reported to prefer the first list over the second. Another concept related to consciousness is priming. People tend to respond more quickly and accurately to questions they already seen, even if they don't remember them. Lastly, there's also a phenomenon related to blind sight. People who are blind can still accurately describe the path of an object they cannot see, demonstrating that the level of consciousness does not involve visual information. And here comes the different levels of consciousness, and how like Sigmund Freud divide the levels of consciousness based on like his theory. So there are three main levels: preconscious, unconscious, and conscious. And other than that, there are two other levels: subconscious and non-conscious. And we'll discuss all of them. So preconscious is out of your awareness, but anything within your preconscious could be easily recalled. For example, if somebody asks you what you ate for breakfast in the morning, you'll be able to recall this information and spit it back to them, but it wasn't your awareness prior to them asking you about it. And next we have unconscious. According to psychoanalysts, such as those psychologists like Sigmund Freud, is a level of consciousness that includes all of your unacceptable thoughts and feelings, often sexual. You are processing this information unconsciously or without any awareness. And finally, your conscious, which is everything you see, hear, touch, taste, or smell. Basically, your 5 senses. There are 2 other levels of consciousness, subconscious and non-conscious. Subconscious, which includes information that we are not consciously aware of, yet we know exists because of our behavior. And finally, we have our non-conscious, or our body processes that we don't control 20 hours to 7 days, such as heartbeat, respiration, digestion, and etc. And now we have cognitive neuroscience. People who study cognitive neuroscience are interested in the biological processes that create our ability to think, particularly through the various neural connections that exist in the brain. Another interesting aspect that goes into how we think is our brain's dual processing capabilities. We can only take in and pay attention to a few things at a time. However, that doesn't mean we have completely missed the information. Oftentimes, information is processed via an unconscious track where we may be able to access it later even though we didn't consciously attend to it. In our previous video on Key Topic 2, Unit 2.5, the drugs, we went over the 3 classifications of drugs, which are hallucinogens, depressants, and stimulants. If you haven't watched my video on that topic, please do so. Let's quickly go more in depth about the way that drugs affect us. So it's basically addiction, tolerance, and withdrawal. And I think a lot of people know like how they play a role in the drug addiction cycle, but maybe you don't know what's the difference between them. So yeah, I guess I will discuss this right now. Addiction with substance use disorder comes addiction. By definition, addiction is the compulsive craving of a drug or behaviors, such as gambling. Although people are aware of the consequences of addiction, it's very difficult to withdraw from substance use. There are 2 types of dependence and addiction, psychological and physiological. Psychological dependence is your desire for the drug, simply saying I want it, increasing your tolerance. Tolerance will be discussed in our next subpoint. Physiological dependence develops when the brain needs the drug in order to avoid withdrawal symptoms. In other words, physiological dependence is the brain's addiction to the drug. And now I have tolerance. Tolerance is the diminishing effect of a drug when taking the same dose of it. In order to feel the effect a drug user is aching for, they must take a greater dosage. Think in this way. You may drink 5 ounces of wine your first time drinking it, and you may be drunken. However, as you continue to drink it, you may need to drink even more to obtain the same effects or achieve the same level of drunkenness because your brain and body get used to the drug. And finally, we have the withdrawal symptoms. It's basically the discomfort and distress that occurs if someone stops taking the drug. Because withdrawal symptoms often happen when someone attempts to stop the drug addiction. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to stop it. Since the body is so used to receiving the drug, it doesn't know how to do without it. Withdrawal, if your body was physiologically dependent on the drug, it is used to having this certain chemical within it. When the drug acts as a neurotransmitter for so long, either by mimicking the neurotransmitter's functions or just completely blocking the function of neurotransmitters, the brain might even stop producing that neurotransmitter, which could have an irreversible effect on your mental and physical body health. Therefore, your body continues to long for the effects of the drug in order to operate, and without it, there are consequences. So now we have 2 practice questions. Number 1, what is the concept of plasticity in regard to the brain? Pause the video and think about it. So the answer is A. Brain's ability to reorganize itself after an accident or modify itself in response to experience. So plasticity can basically just recollect and reorganize itself because to the damages to the brain. A second question, what are the 2 types of dependence and addiction mentioned in this video? Pause the video again. So the answer is A, physiological and psychological. Physiological dependence is like withdrawal symptoms, and psychological is like the addiction. So here comes the end of this video. So thank you for listening, and please like and subscribe to this video if you enjoy the content. Thank you.